You may have to share. That's okay. All right. All right, I'm bringing this joint city council planning commission meeting to order for this February 23rd, 2026. Let's go ahead and stand up and do the pledge of allegiance.
Where is it? It's over there.
That was fun. Everybody ready? Yes.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hot diggity.
That's
We'll relocate it.
It's gonna say Jeannie's our flag expert.
would call me out for
Not
not having it right.
looking for a definitive direction on what to do, so that's great.
All right, we're gonna do roll call. So I think we'll just go around the room here at the tables and just say your name. I'll start with you, sir.
Tim A. Stritch here.
Torrin Nielsen here.
Frederick's here.
John Gredanis here.
Fred Cuthbertson here.
Brian Ray here.
Dan Sheets here.
Harry Myers here.
Jeannie Cuthbertson here.
And who do we have online? I think Counselor Evans is online. Counselor Evans, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And you're here. Great. Thank you. All right. Counselor Williams is sick this evening, so she will not be joining us. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and we've done roll call. Let's do public comment. You have 3 minutes. Does anybody want to come up to the podium and introduce themselves and provide a comment?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I can't see if anybody else walked up to the podium.
Hold on one second. We'll see if we can turn you up a little bit.
Thank you, Counselor Evans. You are correct. The camera is not currently looking at the podium. The camera is attached to the podium and looking out at the room.
I can't see the room at all.
Let me try to fix it. As you may recall, we have an ongoing issue with this particular webcam.
Yes.
I will do my best to keep it on. Sometimes it just chooses to go on.
It's there now.
It
Um,
looks like it's pointed up.
It is pointed slightly up. I am also going to attempt to change our speakers to these speakers here.
Okay.
If they do not work, we may unfortunately be stuck with this computer. This will be
Okay.
the last meeting we have this computer in here.
Okay. So we'll pause for just a moment.
Counselor Evans, can you just say something very quickly to let me know if this is working?
something very quickly.
One more time, Counselor Evans.
Something very quickly.
That was good. That worked.
Okay, are you
Um,
ready?
Yes, and just a quick check. How well can you hear us, Counselor Evans?
I can hear you well.
I suppose that's probably the more important side of the audio.
Definitely.
If we need to ask you to speak up, we will.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
are you ready now?
Yes, we're good. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question. I know, golly, quite a long time ago, the city council came over to the wetlands in the Red Hills Estate neighborhood. And one of the items that the residents brought up was the parking alongside the road in front of the Long Branch Bar and Grill. How it blocks the parking along 99 West, how it blocks the view, makes it a blind corner coming out Arch, when you come down Orchard to turn on to 99. And the city council was going to look into that to try to get some of the parking spaces banned so that people could not park there. And nothing has been done. And I'm certain that was like probably a couple of years ago. I was just wondering if anything has come of that, if perhaps maybe it couldn't be done or something, I don't know. I was just wondering what the status was of that.
There are two pieces to this, Counselor Evans. One is the historic piece, which I suspect could get winded. The second is the technical piece, which I can share with you briefly. This wasn't on my radar yet. I think it would be a good idea if you wanted to come in, maybe during a one-on-one, talk with me about the concerns, perhaps inform me about what council has discussed, and I'd encourage you to also bring this to our work session in a couple of weeks from now, because that would be a good time to sort of talk through something along these lines. If there's a need for a council action or a planning commission action or an administrative action, I suspect we'll be able to suss that out of that discussion.
Okay.
Any other public comments this evening? Okay, going once. Going twice. Okay, 3 times, we're done. All right, I think what we'll do is we'll do staff reports and updates, and then after that, we have a couple things that we want to do. I have an addition to the agenda as well. So what I think we'll do is we'll do staff reports and updates, our volunteer recognition, and then after that, I have like to add an agenda item as an appointment to the Planning Commission. So that's what I would like to.
Would you like to ask, do you want to do that later, the adding the item? You want to do that in a little bit from now?
Yeah, we can do it a little bit from now.
Sounds
That's fine.
good. Okay.
Yeah.
I will briefly bring us to our council report section. I will also look to see if we have the sheriff online this evening. We do have the sheriff in the room today. Great. So we'll call him up, the same process. I'll give my presentation. I will talk to you about the report that is both from finance as well as from public works. And then we'll cap that off with the great work that our county folks are doing for us on public safety. So this is in your, of course, in your packets. I've been working on a number of interrelated and important issues. Water resources, utilities, and regulatory coordination. Largely, we have caught up now on our TMDL reporting. Just in time for the 2025 to be due. That will be going out in the next week or so. The good news is that we have an approved 2024 report, which was continuously kicked back multiple times to staff. So this is a good win. We're also now done with the city's annual water usage report. As a reminder, we had our water master out to help us understand the pieces that we were uncertain about. We submitted a good quality report, and that was done by Mark Murray following a lot of collaboration and communication among all staff. So I was very pleased with how everybody came together for that particular piece. We're continuing to maintain very good communication with Oregon Health Authority Drinking Water Services. They are the ones who are continuously watching our DPBs, and also our bilateral compliance agreement with them is enforced and managed by those folks. I was very pleased to have Sean Stevenson, who is our regulator, here during the 17th meeting that we had just last week, where we had all of Regional Solutions talking about a lot of the things that we're going to be discussing tonight as well. There is a section of our code focused on meter errors. I will be bringing this before council for our next work session. This work session will include also a broader review of current water rates and policies. A number of different components of the code really do require an update. I'll be giving those recommendations at our work session, and then looking to council over the next couple of months to look at a resolution to bring us up to date on our code. Again, regional and intergovernmental coordination has been going very positively. I continue to have my bi-monthly meetings with other city managers in the region, monthly meetings with the OCW COG, who pulls together all the city managers as well as the county. I attended, not only at the biweekly meeting did I have an opportunity to talk about what we're doing, but I also let those folks know that we're doing the 1135 project. That is still moving forward. Water system upgrades and compliance efforts are moving forward. And I also continue to let them know that we're pushing forward the concept, an emergency operations center combined with City Hall, continuing to get momentum and buy-in and support on this project, so that when we're a year from now and we're looking for that support, we have it. Planning and land use, I am pleased to say that we held our second development review committee meeting. As a reminder, that includes everybody from Public Works to the fire department to our engineer of record. Public safety attends when necessary, as well as myself from an administrative as well as a land use perspective. We had the opportunity to look at a couple of complicated projects, and that's what this committee is intended to do. It is not single-family residential focused. It is focused on commercial and industrial projects. I would expect for this committee to look in detail at some of the more engineering designs that come out of the 1135 project as well, to make certain that there aren't any hanging components of the project that one of these folks inevitably step up and say, what about this later on? We continue to be buttoning up finance, audit, and administrative systems. As you all know, we submitted to the state what our plan would be for handling audits this couple months ago. Along with that, I continue to work alongside accounting specialist Flora to make some changes to the way that we are processing monthly reports. You now have 2 checks in front of you or 2 check batches per month instead of 1. And you also have tightened up reporting. I suspect that this is going to save us a lot of money too next year when we have our audit. Facilities, technology, and operations. I continue to coordinate alongside Mark Murray with DRC Shoals to establish these bi-weekly meetings, which have become very helpful in preparing for a lot of the reports that we have to submit, in addition to the 24 or so reports that we already have to submit as a matter of course. They have added PFAS to that. All local jurisdictions in the state of Oregon are under certain circumstances are having to report this, so it is not just us. But this is a good opportunity to continue meeting with DRC Shoals on a bi-weekly basis to make sure we're not only doing the minimum, but we're also protecting our citizens and understanding this at the best possible level that we can. And then, of course, on public outreach and engagement, as a quick reminder, we do have our March 7th town hall meeting coming up. I have been coordinating closely with the mayor and with staff on that. We'll be focusing on a lot of the issues that we'll be discussing tonight. So over the past month, the intent has been to have an administrative focus with our state partners to talk about projects and real funding. That's what we did on the 17th. A joint session between the Planning Commission and the City Council. What we're doing tonight. It's an opportunity to take some of that information and have a good conversation and plug it directly into a presentation that I'm very pleased to have this evening from our folks at the Portland District from the Army Corps of Engineers. On the 7th, there will be the opportunity for the public to ask questions, anything that they're not certain about yet, give you their thoughts and their feelings, or any concerns they have about any of these things and perhaps other items. And then from there, I have some planning, coordination, presentation stuff this evening to share with you about how we're going to begin to operationalize all of these pieces over the coming 1 to 3 years. So that's my report for city administrator. Are there any questions on that before I move on to Don Flora's accounting report?
Any questions?
Good.
Nope. No? Okay. I will proceed with the finance report.
So Donna's been hard at work preparing for the 26-27 budget cycle. She is currently preparing an orientation packet, and that will be the binder that each one of you receives. Each one of you, most of you, will be on that committee on day 1, when the budget committee convenes. It include things like standard line item descriptions, an overview of the roles and responsibilities of what the committee does, a glossary of terms, as well as a reference to the previously adopted budget. In addition, prior actuals are actually being entered into the LB forms, the local budget forms, and all of that is getting prepared so that we are ready to hit the ground running when this committee convenes, likely at the end of March. So be looking for my correspondences, both the city council, as well as to the members of the community who have been appointed as electors to sit on that budget committee. As a brief reminder, I really want to encourage all city councilors to be getting out there, and y'all as well, your planning commissioner, since you're here with me. Get out there and recruit folks to sit on our budget committee. We're a better city and we're stronger when we have more eyes on the budget. So I'd love to see more citizens sit on that committee. We do have some discussions regarding our local government investment pool program. There have been some rate changes over the last 6 months. That's not the significant issue to write home about. The bigger thing, and this will come before you during a work session, is how we're transferring money to LGIP, the policies, the local policies under which we keep it there, and how many funds inside of LGIP we want there to exist. As a very, very brief overview, most local governments have an LGIP fund specific to each capital improvement project, and those correspond with your capital improvement plan. We have one LGIP fund, and all of those dollars are commingled. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's a good idea to establish a separate fund for each one of the CIP categories that exist within the budget. And I recommend that our budget committee make recommendations, of course, to the city council to establish those as we go through our budget cycle. Any questions about the finance report?
I have
Can
a
you
quick
just-
question.
Oh, go ahead, Counselor Evans.
I'm sorry. Can you remind me what LGIP stands for?
It's the local government investment pool. It's a non-FDIC, but still state secured account for funds that local governments intend to use for future capital projects and would like to earn some interest.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Cuthbertson.
I just wondered if you'd go over what it takes to be on budget committee in case anybody's interested so that they know what the parameters of that are.
That's a great point. Thank you. So the budget committee requires that you are registered to vote, that you live within the city of Monroe. You must be an elector. So unlike many of our committees, you must be within city limits. And you must be willing to commit a couple of months of your time. Those are the big pieces. Did I miss anything?
A couple months of your time, can you kind of qualify that a little bit? Because that sounds a little scary. Not quite scary. No.
Only staff gets to feel like that.
Yeah,
No,
that's true.
it's going to be roughly, my estimate is about 10 hours per month from March, April, May, and June. And we may end early, depending on how quickly we get through the process. It can be maybe a little bit more on some months, but I really don't expect it to be like that. My goal is the more I can preload this and get you as much information ahead of time, a good quality binder and so forth, we'll get better work done quicker.
So then we've got Public Works. That's the next report. All right.
So Public Works, Mark's report, he is focusing on water system maintenance. So we did receive a quote to pull and inspect one of those pumps And so we'll be doing that likely next week. And again, also they'll need to schedule a time to pin membranes from cell number 1. Just recall that kind of comes back to some of the gunking up that happens over time, and we kind of just have to have a little bit of a work party, maybe once a year, and pin those so we have a better functioning system. We are looking currently at purchasing the remainder of the meters to replace. As you all know, because we had a biannual budget, for whatever reason, I think the city administrator was thinking it was an annual budget and funded half of the money that we needed for the meters. And so we haven't had the remainder of that money since I've been here. So we have half of the city, about 150 doors that need to get replaced for water meters. We'll be going through the budget process, appropriating funds for that expenditure. Mark continues to be working on his development, his professional development. So he has submitted his application for his water distribution exam. I am very excited about this because as soon as he passes that test, he is now certified to be doing the work that we've been having Chuck do on contract all of this time. Chuck's very excited to be able to see him come up. He's been guiding him all of this time, as you all know, as an advisor. So this is a big win for both of them. He also completed his chlorine training online and completed part 1 of Public Works 101 training provided by LLC. That is a piece that I'm asking all staff. So for Don in finance and Mark in Public Works, there are many trainings available out there, either through the state of Oregon or for League of Oregon Cities, the OAWU. There are many resources. We're having him take those, and we're demonstrating that he's taking those as well. Wastewater treatments. There's the equipment upgrade. So he had reached out to a company that provides a probiotic scrubber material that may eat the effluent going into those retention ponds at a little bit of a faster rate than they naturally do now. The benefit of that may be that we can extend significantly the amount of time between how often we must dredge those ponds. There's a possibility that, I don't know if this is true, but we may never have to dredge those ponds if this add-in functions properly. We'll be going through some steps with some of our technical advisors, including OAWU and DEQ, to make sure that they believe that this is a good product to add to our system, and they're not doing anything that would have negative consequences later on that we're not considering now. If both of those things are true, I look forward to bringing to you a proposal to fund that. With stormwater and drainage, we're continuing to make sure that there are no clogged up catch basins. I have asked staff to do this more regularly. It is a requirement of our TMDL. We just submitted our TMDL saying this is what we're doing, and we are in fact doing it. We also have met with some folks in the city who have been having some challenges with standing water on their property. This comes from the spring that comes downhill. Torrin, this will sound very familiar to you because this
I've
is
seen him out. I've seen him out there bailing. Yeah, I know.
yeah, absolutely. I will be bringing the council some information that was provided by Trevor, and I did join Mark on that site visit a week or so ago when he asked us to come out and look. I dare not look right now because it's been quite the rain and I just don't know what it looks like. But we're gonna have to do something to support them and also determine whether that water's coming from its source is within the city limits. We don't know. If that's not a statement, that's what I have to determine. And then also we continue with the Kubota challenge. I'm calling it that now. It's the Kubota challenge. One of the issues that we have faced is that the loan options provided by Kubota directly actually has a knockout for local governments. We are not eligible for that loan program. They just found out after trying to pull the trigger. So we'll come back to you during the work session to talk to you about what the next plan is. The good news is that Mark does not need his tractor, at least for the next several weeks. Winter time, we have a little bit of a reprieve from what normal daily business would look like. Those are all the reports right now. Thank you for your time.
We also,
You have the sheriffs.
Deputy Savage, you want to go ahead and,
Were there,
Comment?
just quickly though, any questions
Oh,
for
okay.
any of the, any of the public works stuff?
any questions? No? Okay, very good.
And then Deputy Savage, I have this queued up for you right here. If you'd like to reference it.
named Sprague Savage, Benton County Sheriff's Office. Sprague will be here. There's the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff's Office is doing well. We're grateful to be a part of the community. Looking over the report from this last month, it's pretty standard. Relates to some calls for service, some traffic, traffic enforcement, that type of thing. Continuing to get our contract hours. Are there any questions regarding the?
Any questions from the report?
Is there anything that you'd like to see from citizens that may help you guys or provide better information or anything else to help you?
You know, we get so much support, especially from Monroe and the area. There's nothing that I can think of off the top of my head, but one thing I would say is if you see us hanging around town, don't hesitate. Say hi, chat with us, that type of thing. I don't mind it, and most of our stuff, so, we'd be happy to get to know more people. Other than that, no, there's nothing that I can think of that's like, it's something.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Nope. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Oh, go ahead.
Sure. Stuff to notice that you guys had established like the first responder day.
Correct.
25th anniversary.
Right.
coming up. He just wanted to send his thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy.
All right. So next on the agenda, I have, on behalf of the city council, I have a volunteer recognition award I'd like to present to Mr. Johnny Akers. Johnny, you have been a busy man. You have, if I'm wrong, correct me, okay? 3 tables at the toddler park, you sanded and refinished the tables and the benches. 7 tables altogether, including the 40-foot one over at the city park. Yeah, I'm sure that one took a long time.
We did that. And everything, put 3 coats on the thing on everything, so it's in that for 2 years.
That is awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Awesome. Good people.
All right. Now I wanted to go ahead and officially add an agenda item to the meeting tonight. So I do have an appointment to Planning Commission that I'd like to make. But we have to vote on adding an agenda item, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I'll make a motion. We add the agenda item.
I'll second it.
all right, I guess we'll go ahead and vote. Just council, I'm assuming. I don't need to involve Planning Commission in this vote. Is that correct? Okay. Counselor Evans.
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Cuthbertson.
Yes.
Counselor Myers.
Yes.
Counselor Ray.
Yes.
Okay. I believe we have everybody. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead. We're going to do it right now. So I'm going to say a couple things, Preston, and then I'm going to have you come up and we'll go from there. Okay, apologize. I can't see anything anymore. Pursuant to the authority invested in me by Monroe City Charter as mayor, I hereby appoint Preston Daggett to the Planning Commission effective immediately. I look forward to working with Preston and the entire Planning Commission, guiding the future development of our city. Come on up, Preston.
All right. We'll just-
A water bottle. It's crinkly tonight.
Maybe tonight.
That's why I go with the picture.
There you go.
Then I can make sure all the lighting's just right.
Is that like a donkey or?
Preston Daggett.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Sheets. I will briefly notice, I am just now noticing that the summary of the minutes for last meeting is not in your packet.
No.
So I would ask you to craft your motion this evening to reflect that you will go back next month and approve the minutes for the prior month as well as this month in the following meeting. I will just briefly carry you through this as you all look at your packets. We have the treasurer's report, which includes the totals by fund. These are your primary fund account. Then we have for each fund, the accounts total. So everything from Fund 100 all the way through 200, 300, and so forth. We'll start to see Canon on our invoices now rather than our last company. You have your outstanding vouchers, which is where I'm looking. And then followed by your transaction journal, beginning on page 18. As you know, you see the full month of January, so you have a full complete snapshot of the entire prior month rather from council date to council date.
I have a question on the first half of security camera cost. So we're getting that billed in two different segments.
That is correct. We did the first half this year, and then the next fiscal year, we'll pay the other half of it. We still had to follow all the same procurement rules for capital expenditures. However, we're just splitting it up for our budget needs.
I've noticed credit balance refunds, and I think those are for water bills,
Correct.
pretty sure. But I've seen the same name pop up several times. Is that common?
It's not, and if there's an
we
example
check
you'd like to
with-
bring to my attention, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll come in and do that. I might be mistaken, but I think I've seen it a few times, so I
Just
just want to make
verify.
sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. On page 28, that's where you switch from your APs to your APs paid.
I have a question on the accounts
Go ahead.
payable paid. We have Benton County Finance Office, $32, 2 convictions, PIF. I'm not certain what PIF stands for, but it's to C. Schuster and K. Caldwell dash Cublet. And then down a little ways, we have Oregon Department of Revenue, $100, 2 convictions, PIC, and then it's the same, C. Schuster and K. Caldwell Couplet. I assume that we're paying that to law firms, the same law firm. I'm confused because we're paying the same people or company. I'm
thank
just
you. Yes, so the vendor, the recipient of the funding, as you noted, for the account pay number 4727 is the Benton County Finance Office. The next one down, you'll notice, is the Oregon Department of Revenue. So they are 2 separate recipients. I do track what you're saying, that it appears to be related to the same issue. I suspect very strongly that this is related to municipal court costs. Dawn is our municipal court clerk. She's also our accounting specialist, so I will check in with her to be sure that there aren't any issues here. But I think I'm hearing you that you just want to be sure that it is done correctly and maybe a little more information about what it is. Is that right?
Yeah, I saw them on there twice, and so I was just like, just curious.
Yeah, I haven't drilled down to this level of specificity on the municipal court, but I will find out about that for you and I will let you know.
Okay, thank you.
On page 29 beginning, this is where you'll start to see the summary cover sheets. This is how we're doing all payables now, whether they're check, ACH, or credit card. This particular one happens to be credit card. So it's a tight, neat, just review of all of the different costs, the account it was built from, and then following from that is the information that you're used to seeing. And we'll give council a little more time to look through your packet, see if there are any questions or comments.
I will entertain a motion whenever you're ready.
Everybody's had a chance.
Good, you're good.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda less the minutes, which will be subject to a later review.
Okay, who would like to second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right, any comments, additional questions before we vote? No, okay. All right, we shall vote then. Counselor Evans,
Yes.
Counselor Cuthbertson,
Yes.
Counselor Myers,
Yes.
Counselor Ray.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, we are moving on to OWRD water grant. That's page 34 through 50 in the packet.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
This puts a very pretty bow on a very long project.
Yes.
So as a reminder for council and planning commission, as well as for members of the public who maybe aren't familiar with the history. In the last biennium, in the beginning of the last biennium. So we're talking like, I believe it was 2024. Or am I wrong? That was 2023, wasn't it? Because it was a long session.
Yeah, I think it was 2023.
23.
Yeah.
The mayor worked diligently with Representative Gomberg to identify funding from the Oregon Lottery, which would provide some infrastructure, some capital dollars to make some very needed improvements to the water treatment plant. This is all connected to the disinfectant byproduct issue that we have consistently had over time and has been the cause of our bilateral compliance agreement, both the one we had previously and the one that we continue to be under now. Our city administrator then was given a task to complete a detailed application form. So once the money is appropriated, it is then the responsibility of staff to identify a budget, timeline, how it's going to get spent, and all the work that's going to happen when the project actually gets funded. That work did not complete. It didn't begin and it didn't happen in time. And so that money was rescinded in the last biennium. Coming on board, the mayor reached back out to Representative Gomberg and was fortunate enough to have the relationship and for Representative Gomberg to have the knowledge of this project sufficient to remember and to work for us to bring that funding back. We then had the opportunity again, and my job was to complete that detailed application process, submit it to the Oregon Water Resources Department for final funding. After that, we received a note from OWRD that they would be cutting our funding by $300,000. So we worked very closely with this body, both bodies here, in fact, to craft a letter that stated how critical it would be to lose that funding. We also worked with the Benton County Commissioners who submitted a separate letter. I'm very pleased to let you know that on day one, this is a short session, by the way, in the Ways and Means Committee, we're looking at an average of 5% cuts across all appropriations for this coming biennium. On day one, they determined that they were going to make a 0% cut to our grants, and we received all 1.5 million. In addition to that, you'll notice that we received another $25,000. And that is specifically to support us in the matching funds component. So that is not part of the $1.5 million. That is additional money that goes into our general fund, is intended to help go towards the match that we have for that work. So that's what you have in front of you for this evening. I will briefly go over some of the details on this grant for the benefit of the public, but I'm happy to say that once this is inked and dried, we will receive the funding to move forward with the work that OHA is desperately waiting for us to do. So this is between, of course, the Water Resources Department and the City of Monroe. Before exhibits include the conditions of agreement in Exhibit A, the grant budget itself in Exhibit B. This is what we submitted to the state. Exhibit C, the project description, also what we submitted to the state, as well as Exhibit D, the permits and regulatory approvals, which was collaboratively determined alongside OWRD. So you will see here in grant section 2 in bold is, I can't tell you the feeling I had sitting behind my desk by myself when I saw this. I was very happy to bring this in front of you. They talk about some of the legal requirements for disbursement. The punchline is that this must be fully expended by the end of the biennium, which means June of 2027. So we have a year and 3-ish months to complete this project, about 4 months, actually, a year and 4 months. They do also discuss conditions. Use of the grant, what the eligible costs are, who we're allowed to hire, some of the important pieces, and please know that this is something that is very critical when I'm watching regularly. We cannot make changes to our water treatment plant without said changes getting approved by OHA WS, and we will be doing that. Power authorities, binding obligations, a lot of boilerplate legal language. the sub-agreements and procurement processes. And for procurements over 25,000, the grantees must solicit quotes. This goes directly back to ORS 279, which requires for capital projects that we go out to bid for anything that is over $25,000. It talks about sole source procurement, as we've discussed this before too. It also covers, of course, termination and default. This is an opportunity, and I bring this up because I see that, of course, we have both bodies here. If there are comments or questions or concerns from the planning commission or from city council, now is the time to raise those.
Page 48. As an itemized list of, the equipment, $230,000. What does that entail?
So equipment is going to include components that are installed within the water treatment plant that need to be upgraded. So the actual machinery that you see bolted to the floors and the walls, some of that will be changed out to upgrade our system such that it can handle those infectant byproducts better. So on this list, we have staff, salary, and benefits. This will include Mark's time, some of my time, Dawn's time as well. Contractual and consulting, that is, of course, where a large chunk of this money is going to go. We need a subject matter expert to tell us what to do and then to do it. Supplies. Materials. This will be a significant amount of money as well. This differs from equipment. In fact, in the sense that they are not part of the plants and equipment, they are not part of the balance sheet that we depreciate over time. They are just supplies and materials that go into the work itself. Think wire, stuff like that. Travel, we do have some money there for travel, both us, our staff to go places, and for folks to come visit with us. We're responsible for paying with that. And then the equipment, as you're noting right now, that's the second largest line item there. After we ask our subject matter experts to tell us what to do and how to do it, we then need the it to put in. And then permitting, of course.
Could these be adjusted based upon what comes out of the consulting? If they say you need more equipment than you need material, can that be adjusted?
Absolutely. So I worked, this is a back of the envelope budget that is appropriate and sussed out with our engineer of record, with our public works team, as well as with OWRD. We believe that this is really where the category should live, but there's always, with any grant appropriation, the need to move funding from one place to another because your consultant tells you that's necessary. So yes, there is latitude for that.
And that would include any new computer systems and.
The new computer system is part of this, so that goes into the equipment components.
Okay.
But if there's a need to move things around at all, we can do that. We simply need to justify it.
Are we looking at keeping the same type of water filtration system? Or are we looking at new systems as well?
Our subject matter expert will tell us that. We
Okay,
have,
so we don't know which way this one's going. These are just the.
that's right. We completed a feasibility study that was done by Civil West. They were also the firm that completed our water master plan in 2019, and they were intimately involved after we installed the plant with how that plant would operate. Fortunately, they're slightly remiss that they weren't involved in the actual construction of the plant. In their feasibility study, which is how we got to going after this grant, they identify a number of steps that they recommend. Many of those recommended steps, I suspect, are going to be copy and paste. We still need to do those. Maybe the dollar amounts changed. Keep in mind, though, we have a very rare opportunity here to pair this work. We must pair this work with a new intake that is going to be going in because of the changes to the river levels as a result of the 1135 project. Those things need to work together, and we have the opportunity to make a better system than we might have had prior to this grant going by itself.
So then to me, just this is just me being concerned.
Yeah.
How do you make those two things line up?
We do it with our RFP very carefully, requiring the same firm who's working on those water system upgrades to be the firm that works on the intake.
Because they may not happen at the same time.
That's exactly right.
So,
And the intake needs to be scoped and approved prior to the removal of the dam. So that is ready to go, because the moment that water level drops, people still need to keep drinking water. And so the intake has to happen first, and that engineer needs to be able to speak both the needs of OHA DWS with regard to the DPPs and the upgrades we're making here, as well as to the pretty serious infrastructure change, which is going to require some 404s. It's going to trigger a lot of stuff that's going to be at the federal, state, and local level. So the vertical integration of policy requirements is going to be pretty substantial. Yeah, the engineer needs to be talking to him.
that's, to me, that's just a little bit scary. Because
Absolutely.
you don't know. It's apples and oranges and you don't know what's coming first. So,
My job is to be sure that I give you as much information as I can as early as possible, and to ask all the questions that we know are right to ask at this time.
Just piggyback off of Fred's question on moving money around. So let's say, for example, we want to take 50K out of materials and move it into equipment. Is there some sort of policing on that?
Some sort of what?
Policing? Does that go to council? Or is that just, you just make that decision, or how's that decision made?
So that really is an administrative decision, but
Okay.
that's not something I'm going to do in a vacuum. If we make substantial changes to this, it's absolutely something we are going to discuss as a group.
Okay, any other questions?
Did you say that the engineering firm hasn't told you which system you're going with?
What I said was that the feasibility study gave us a recommendation for a system. We received that a couple years ago. That's how we got that grant. I'm also saying that there's been a little change and that we're also pulling out the intake, and that's all going together at the same time. So it's possible they might revise maybe a small piece of their feasibility study. It's also possible I'm completely wrong because I'm not a subject matter expert and they don't. I'm saying they're gonna look at it and tell us, and I at least want them to check that box.
What happens if you go over budget?
We need to find the money elsewhere to complete the project.
Like, how do you just find money?
This is part of what keeps me up at night. But the reality is though, that we need to scope out a project and cost it out, have estimators on their end, cost it out such that we can demonstrate that we have the funding available. No city, no local government under the Oregon law can commit to a capital project without being fully funded.
And also in terms of scoping the solution, the budget is part of the requirement. So that's what feeds into their design.
Absolutely. You guys are kind of talking about the same thing. The budget I crafted, what you're talking about is us saying, here's how we're going to use this money. And in a perfect world, this money's going to cover it all. And what Tim's saying is, what if it's not a perfect world? And that is the task that I'll be working with our engineer and with the state. We do have contingency plans. We do have the ability to dip into other places. And I'm identifying those now and working with partners as best I can to come up with emergency scenarios if we need them. I want to get ahead of that.
Good question.
It is.
Okay, any other questions?
Sir, you have a clean copy there in front of you, should this council move forward with approval.
Oh, we need to approve this? Okay.
Yes.
The council doesn't need to sign that, so we can actually handle signatures offline if you'd like.
That's fine. Okay, so we need a motion.
Are there any questions about this document before we move forward? Super exciting, by the way.
This stops at page 50, right?
I believe you're.
Exhibit D.
Yep, page 50, that's correct.
Well, we're not gonna solve it by not doing anything. I make a motion that we accept this proposal as written. With the understanding that edits may happen.
Here, look.
You're executing this grant agreement. So
Yes, please.
Yes.
Who would like to second it?
Second.
I'll
All
second
right.
it.
Ooh, Counselor Ray got to it before you did. Nice try, though. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns before we vote? Okay,
I just want to say
yes.
thank you, council, for working on this. I mean, we've lost it because of inaction before.
We're not losing it this time.
Yes. So
I'm gonna have a serious problem if we do. All right, let's go ahead and vote. Counselor Evans,
Yes.
Counselor Cuthbertson,
Yes.
Counselor Myers,
yes.
Counselor Ray.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. There you are, sir.
I appreciate it.
All right.
You go ahead.
Yep.
Give it up.
I'm working on it right now. All right, our next item on the agenda is the 1135 dam removal project. We have a presentation by the Army Corps of Engineers. Come on down.
Related, huh?
Mhm.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, let me just set up my laptop here real quick. I've got some notes here to. Okay. All right. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Granados. I work for the Army Corps of Engineers. I'm a civil engineer, and I'm also the technical lead for the Section 1135 of the Continuing Authorities Program. And this is the Long-Tom Ecosystem Restoration Project. I'm here with a handful of other Corps representatives. Nate, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening. I'm Nate Wales. I'm the current project manager for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Some of you may have met Elliot Porter, who was the project manager during the feasibility phase and during the execution of the project partnership agreement with the city. His role has transitioned to me and will be then transitioning likely next month to Liz Oliver, who is here in the audience as well. And then we also have with us Wendy Jones from our Willamette Valley office.
Great, thank you. So this ecosystem restoration project is a cost share project with the City of Monroe as the non-federal sponsors. We're here today to discuss the proposed scope changes to the project for the concurrence by our non-federal sponsor. And we really appreciate this opportunity to be here in person with you all to discuss this. So really quick project background, just in case somebody's not familiar. The Monroe drop structure was constructed in the 1940s as part of the Long Tom Channel Rectification Project, which straightened out many miles with Long Tom River downstream of Fern Ridge Dam. When it was constructed, the Monroe drop structure became a fish passage barrier and has resulted in loss of upstream habitat and ecosystem function. In 2024, a feasibility study and environmental assessment was developed and approved by the Corps, the City of Monroe, and the Siletz Tribe. It evaluated the alternatives to address those issues. And out of that feasibility study came a recommended plan. And that recommended plan was three topics or three items: armoring of the Highway 99 bridge piers, installation of a larger culvert to connect to a historic meander, and most critically, removal of the Lowhead Dam, the Monroe drop structure, while leaving in the eastern retaining wall and the western fish ladder and mill race. The feasibility study looks at alternatives from a really high level view. Hardly any design was done, and really just looked at whether or not the objectives can be achieved. Invariably, there will be some changes to the feasibility study because it is just that, just to see if things are feasible. With the recommended plan in hand from the feasibility study, the Corps and the City of Monroe signed a project partnership agreement to take that plan and advance it into design and construction. And then the design phase takes that feasibility study and looks at all the the bits and pieces of it and digs into the details a little bit more. And through that process of design, the Corps determined that leaving in the retaining wall on the eastern bank and the mill race and the fish ladder on the western bank, but removing the drop structure itself would leave the structures, the retaining wall, the mill race, and the fish ladder vulnerable to failure. And potentially almost immediately after construction, if not likely within the first 5 years of construction. And that's really due to hydraulic loading, loss of structural support from the drop structure, and just the age of the structures. One thing I failed to mention is the Monroe drop structure was built in the 1940s, but the mill race and the fish ladder were installed sometime in the early 1900s. So we're talking about over 100-year-old concrete. So pretty old structures. So once the Corps identified these issues, we developed 3 alternatives and brought those to our non-federal sponsors. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. And those are the 3 kind of courses of action in order to address the issues of the mill race and the fish ladder. And I'm going to start with actually course of action 3. Sorry to make you scroll, but I think that makes a little bit more logical sense to start with that one. So in order to design a cost-effective and reasonable solution, engineers really need to understand all the constraints, the assumptions, and design criteria. This is usually found from as-builts, which show us how something was designed, the specifications, and also how that design was constructed. And in addition, we get those design criteria from field investigations like drilling, sampling, surveying, things like that. Unfortunately, for the drop structure and the mill race and fish ladder, we don't have any as-builts. So we don't know what type of material was used. I mean, obviously it's concrete, but we don't know the exact mix that was used or how it was actually constructed, because oftentimes the design and construction are a little bit different. So in order to really figure out all of these design criteria, key assumptions, we need to do some sort of field investigation. And that looks like I said, drilling, sampling, surveying, things of that nature. However, something like that in this situation ends up being fairly costly given the constrained site and that it's also in water. Yeah, we'd be talking about doing some sort of dewatering plan in order to just do some survey to get somebody up inside the mill race in order to figure out what's actually how it was constructed, or some other design considerations. So effectively, this option would provide as much information as possible to the engineers to develop a reasonable design, or to determine that the structures are potentially fine without the drop structure. It's possible, but using our best engineering judgment, we think that there is going to be some sort of modifications needed to the mill race and fish ladder if we want to keep them in place, which brings us to COA 2. COA 2 is, we're calling it the engineered solution. Essentially, engineers will use our engineering judgment in place of having the most accurate design criteria. We'll make very conservative assumptions to develop a solution to keep the mill race and fish ladder in. There'd be little to no investigation needed. However, we are relying on these old structures to continuing operating while exceeding their design life. This design looks like taking out the retaining wall, most of the drop structure, leaving in about 8 to 10 feet on the west side that's attached to the mill race and the fish ladder. Also leaving in the mill race and fish ladder, installing rock anchors through the drop structure that's left in place, and then armoring it with a bunch of riprap, which is just large rocks, covering it almost entirely, leaving just the top of the mill race exposed. In doing so, this would push the river to the east, so we'd be required to place riprap on the eastern bank to prevent erosion. And in doing that, we are now constricting the river on both sides, which then increases velocity, water velocity through that constriction. And that potentially impedes fish passage because I'm not a biologist, but fish tend to like lower velocities, certain velocities, and we don't want to increase the speed there and effectively create a hydraulic barrier, which again, fish passage is the main reason for this project.
And just to be clear, these would be higher velocities than were anticipated. In the feasibility report, we estimated a certain amount of benefits for fish passage. Those would be lessened if we follow this course of action. And it should also be understood by the city. Anything such as an engineered solution under this course of action under our agreement, once we have as partners removed the drop structure and placed in this engineered solution, the Corps of Engineers will then turn it back over or will turn it over to the city of Monroe. And it would become the city's responsibility to operate and maintain and make sure that that structure is maintained moving forward. It will become the city's responsibility.
Yeah, thank you for that for the clarification, Nate. This course of action 2 is still a cost increase to the project and also schedule impact, but it is not as costly in either of those aspects as COA 3. So it is a little bit better. And finally, moving on to COA 1, course of action 1, and that is total removal of the mill race, the fish ladder, and the retaining wall, basically everything. And that would require us to regrade the banks, plant them with native plants. This course of action has no impact to schedule and limited impact to budget. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of increase to the construction cost for removing the additional concrete of the mill race and the fish ladder. However, we do not have any hydraulic or environmental concerns. And yeah, I think that's it for COA 1. So upon further investigation into these courses of action, the Corps has determined that they think that the best path forward is COA 1. We've had a lot of internal meetings, and this course of action meets all of the project objectives, stays on schedule, and has the least cost increase. We're talking about less than 100K. So, TJ, I know you also sent us an email that had a couple of points to go over. Did you want me to go through some of those, or was that sufficient?
I think that what you covered was a great overview of what the council and the planning commission, I think, had the opportunity to read over. Might be a good time for folks to ask questions. If they're not hitting on those questions, perhaps you might want to share some of those. It's completely.
Yeah, that sounds good. Any questions?
I have a question. So is it my understanding that basically to continue the process of moving forward through this design phase, you're at a stopping point until a decision is made regarding this? That's essentially why we have to make a decision between these different courses of action.
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Over here.
Go ahead.
If it's determined that the mill race and that is considered historic, that's going to change the options, right? We're going to lose option 1 and we're going to lose. So we're going to limit us to 2 options, correct?
Not necessarily. So cultural resources is a fairly creative, they have a lot of creative ways to mitigate for something that's historic. As of right now, internally, USACE, Army Corps, has internally determined that the mill race and the fish ladder are not historically significant. That does need to be concurred with by SHPO. We are sending out that letter, I believe this week, actually, and we should hear back from SHPO within 30 days.
30-day window required. If they don't answer, then it's a given.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. So we currently think that it's not a historic structure, so there shouldn't be any issues. However, if SHPO does come back and say that it is a historic structure, then there are some potential mitigations that we could do, and that could look as like something as simple as a newspaper article or a plaque, something like that. And we can still remove the structures, but that is something to be
I
determined.
have a follow-on question, regarding the historical structures. When you remove them, I presume you have to break them down into small components for safety reasons. You can't remove the whole piece, right?
Right, yeah, I mean, it would have to be demolished in order to be taken
Okay,
out, yeah.
And that's the only reason I was asking, because we do have a piece over in the park that was it one of the turbines?
The original turbine.
Right.
Yeah.
that was there, yeah.
So, I mean, we already have a part way, we already have a historical component for that over there. So, I mean, that might be one of the arguments to use, is, well, this is just the housing, we already have a historical monument to that.
Right.
You could augment with commemoration essentially there. It would
Yeah.
be, well, another alternative perhaps.
Yeah,
Um,
like you say, a plaque right there, say pictures with a plaque. Used to be on Forest Service land, you could find plaques that had commemorative stuff.
Yep.
Up all the time.
Exactly.
I have another question real quick. So one of the goals of the larger community goals was to increase, public access to the river. Would the COA 2 that includes the riprap, would that be essentially a, deterrent for would it be an obstacle for access to the river?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't go into a lot of the specifics of it, but we think adding that amount of riprap could potentially cause some sort of human safety risks, not only with people falling off the riprap, because there'd still be the top of the mill race that they'd be able to access, but also recirculating currents just downstream of the mill race and fish ladder.
So when it gets turned over to the city, if, after the project, what if it's determined that it's causing additional erosion or other factors that are gonna increase cost to the city? How are we,
That's
I
an us
mean, is there-
problem, Fred.
huh?
Once they're done, they turn it over. That's an us problem.
Yep.
That's correct, yes.
So if it turns out it doesn't function as it was designed, if it creates an unusual erosion there,
We don't have a
Allow the-
warranty. We don't have a warranty or
There's no
anything like
warranty.
that.
They're
Yeah.
removing what's kept them married to Monroe for the last 70 years.
Yeah.
And once it's gone, whatever is left is ours.
To clarify between the COA and COA 2, CO1 and 2, is there an increased risk of additional operation and maintenance as a distinction between those two different approaches?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's exactly right. COA 2 does have O&M requirements and responsibilities. COA 1, because we've removed all of the structures, there's really nothing to operate or maintain that the city's
So
responsible.
more risk with 2, less risk.
Do you want the root canal and the crown? Do you want to pull it out entirely? Or do you want to do a bunch of investigation to decide? Those are really the three. That's kind of what we got here.
So with regard to the water intake, and then the 1135 project, is there going to be any coordination, and with the environmental aspects of this? Any of the permitting, anything like that? Was there going to be coordination at all there to make sure we have a water intake that's functioning before the dam comes down?
Right, so as part of the construction of this project, we'll be constructing a pilot channel from the drop structure all the way to the Highway 99 bridge. That pilot channel is primarily to keep, basically nudge the river in the right direction. Obviously, we can't tell the river exactly what to do, but put the water where we hope it to be. And secondarily, to also ensure that the city's water intake functions properly. So we'd be putting it in a place that would ensure many different designs of the water intake would work effectively.
And so the 404, and that would be your bailiwick.
No,
Yeah, so typically the way that this works is if before we're doing the project and putting in the water system, then we would do all of the permitting. The Corps' action in this case is to remove the drop structure and do the habitat ecosystem project. We're trying to sequence the timing and the schedule so that everything marries up correctly before the any of the concrete comes out. If the city is installing the water system, and I know there's grant funding and other sources to get to that point, there will be a permit application, most likely a 404.
There is, most definitely, and that will trigger the nexus.
Yep, and then the section 408, we will work internally, it's a different group within the Corps that does those.
But it's still the Corps doing it.
It is, but it's not, we don't fill out the application for the wetland permitting.
So my concern, and I think what we're talking about here is that there's going to be the separate EA related to that. And if you guys doing the environmental assessment related to that, that would be part of the question, if there's going to be an EA related to it.
You're talking about for the water intake? No, so we would not be doing that.
And so if they're not, so since we need the water intake done,
Mhm.
and that requires those components, you guys are saying not ours to handle, but it has to be handled by a federal agency under NEPA. And it would be you guys because it's a 404 trigger.
Great. So in this case, when the regulatory office gets this project and also the section 408 has to review it because anything that's put in, if the long-term channel is used for floodwater conveyance from Fern Ridge Dam to the main stem Willamette, anything that's put into the river can't stop that flood control purpose. So there is a 408 review and a 404 review for the wetland dredge and fill. And we have this project going on. So internally within the Corps, we're required to coordinate all those actions and try to get one decision. It may be, in this case, it's not my call to make, but the regulatory office may say a separate environmental assessment may not be needed for the water intake because an environmental assessment was already done for the feasibility study of this project. But they will have to look at everything that's been done for the analysis, see if that would trigger something. It could be something because it's an existing water intake that could fit under like a nationwide permit for regulatory. It's hard to say how that will play out because the regulatory office hasn't been involved yet. But internally, it would all be coordinated. We don't intend to pull any concrete out until the city knows exactly what they're doing in the water intake. So.
Councilor Cuthbertson, go ahead.
So, you guys keep talking just about the direct drop structure and the water intake. If you let the water go, that will drop the water table behind the drop structure, correct?
Drop the water surface elevation.
Okay,
Yes.
right. So, which will drop the water table a little bit. We have a well as well on some property that is just up from the drop structure. Is that going to impact that well? Because we have issues with water anyway, the intake, the river, if all that's even going to work out. Sometimes we have to be asked, we've been asked in the past, do we have other places we can draw water? One of our main places that we might possibly be able to do that is that well. And so in the engineering, have you guys figured out like what's going to happen upstream from that? You know, that originally there's some sloughs up there that had an endangered species and they backed the water up to save those endangered species. And now we're going to go ahead and just drain those and let them die so that we can save this other one. So at what point are we paying attention to all the things in the pile? Because I asked about the water before with that and I was told they would get back to me and it just never happened. So have we thought about that in the engineering of what's going to happen with all that?
Sure. Yeah, so at this time, we don't anticipate any impacts to the water users upstream of the Monroe drop structure after the removal. So, I mean, certainly we can do more investigation into that to absolutely 100% make sure, but I mean, at this time, we don't anticipate any.
Well, you don't anticipate, but how do you even
Well,
know?
we're talking about you're talking about groundwater. It's your
Could add, so the Army Corps of Engineers is responsible for the flood control, so the dam is in place. Once there is stored water, Bureau of Reclamation issues water permits for withdrawal. So there are a lot of water withdrawals for agricultural use along the Long Tom River. And we have minimum targets that we have to hit to make sure, you know, there is water in the river, especially in the summertime when the agricultural use is there. So Fern Ridge Dam is there. You've got a lake full of water. They are monitoring the gauge, the USGS gauge that's here in Monroe, and that will likely have to be moved slightly because of this design here. So the dam operator has to make sure currently that there's 30 CFS flowing through this area. They are ratcheting that up daily based on how much water is being pulled out, whether that's by the Junction City Irrigation District or individual farmers along that area. That being said, that's not wells. We have not talked with the Oregon Water Resources Department about wells in the area. There hasn't been an analysis about the groundwater and that use. But we do know that the water that is in the river should still be available for all the irrigation uses because that's a requirement through Bureau of Reclamation that we put that water in the river for that use. I hope that helps, but we can contact Oregon Water Resources Department about the well issue, but it isn't something we have looked into specifically.
Somebody help me.
I think, are you concerned about it? So I guess you're talking about the level of the river dropping, right?
The ponded water does not have as much of an impact upon the overall groundwater that you're concerned, because the volume of the water is the same. So the volume is still going through there. You're just getting a decrease in the actual vertical level of just that pond.
There's the height, right?
Yep.
And then you
The water still goes
you
through.
also have the speed, which is going to increase a teeny tiny bit. And that has more
In
of
that
an
area.
effect to do with what these gentlemen are working on with regard to hydrology and hydraulics. With regard to the groundwater, I think the only way that could possibly have an impact is if, you know, no more water were seeping into the ground. And those wells are being replenished from surface water. There is, of course, that hyporheic zone next to the river that, of course, the water coming off of it to the side has little channels through the underground connectivity. Yes, that exists, but are they going that far away from the river? I don't know how far that well is, but it's it's a long distance away from the river. So
Is it?
I wouldn't have that big of a concern for that like hyporheic zone not making it where you would expect. This is a non-subject matter expert perspective here. And I don't know if any of us are qualified to speak to the groundwater piece. We can ask that question to make sure that we feel confident, though. I feel okay, but we can double check for sure.
Absolutely.
It's just one of our main wells in the city, and that's my only concern.
How much you're gonna lower the water level? 7 feet?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I can look that up for you and get that.
Is
But-
it going to upstream? Is it going to make some of these sloughs dry up that house turtles and nutria and all the rest of these evasive things? You want to save the fish, but it's going to impact us other.
Right.
But I've heard, oh, well, they're going to, you know, they'll adapt.
NEPA should have covered that.
Yep.
You don't know that.
Well, so I was going to say, as part of the feasibility study, we looked at a lot of different alternatives and also did an environmental assessment. Because of the nature of the project, ecosystem restoration, we're not allowed to have negative impacts to the ecosystem at all. So we would not have recommended this plan if we didn't think that there was going to be negative impacts.
Construction, noise in terms of decibels during the in-water construction work,
Sure.
impacts to threatened and endangered species, impacts to non-threatened and endangered species. All of that went into it, including cultural and historical resources. The one question I have, which will probably get buttoned up likely through some sort of amended environmental assessment, because you guys resulted in a FONSI. That FONSI came out of course, saying we're not doing anything with our cultural and natural resources or cultural and historic resources. This engineering decision, of course, triggers a change to what that FONSI was based on. So there's most likely going to be some sort of amendment.
For COA2,
Yes.
correct.
So my hope it'd be at that point in time, you will have received enough information regarding the 404 and the 408 triggers related to our water intake that you might be able to go talk with the guy in the office down, you know, the hall from you who's dealing with that part of it and have maybe a conversation that can help us shorten some time frames.
Sure, and TJ, also to clarify, you're right, there would need to be an amended EA if we had gone ahead with course of action 2. Going ahead with course of action 1, which is removing the mill race and fish ladder and the retaining wall. We believe that that is still within the scope of the original EA, and so our environmental team would write a memorandum for the record that would be attached to the EA, to the original EA, but an amended EA would not be required. That is their take on it. Sorry.
I have a quick question. if you
Yeah,
don't mind.
please.
Are there any other structures between us and Fern Ridge that may have to be removed also?
There are other structures like the Stroda structure, and is there another one? Cox Butte. At this time, we're not anticipating to remove those. It's just the Monroe drop structure.
Okay, but if they get removed later, is that going to cause us any sediment issues with our new intakes and stuff like that?
I don't have that answer for you.
I didn't expect you to. It
yeah.
was just a question I wanted to bring
Yeah.
up.
Do any of these options impact the quality of the water?
So I would say, let me think about that for a second. No, there will be a minor amount of potential water quality issues during the time of construction. Once we remove the drop structure, there is a certain amount of sediment built up behind the drop structure, but through the water quality certification process, we'll find ways to make sure it doesn't impact users downstream during construction.
What time of year do you plan on taking the drop structure out? Surely it's not this time of year.
No, the in-water work window is, I believe, July through October.
Yes, that's correct.
And that's fire season.
Right.
And all the way around us, there's timber.
There's no, I mean, that's the time of year that it's going to happen. no
I'm just
matter-
saying you better take this into consideration. Because we have water that's going to be needed for fires.
So part of the reason, and I mentioned this a little bit ago, part of the reason that I will be inviting the Portland District team to come join the Development Review Committee meeting is so that our engineer of record, who is still working on his review of the engineering decision that you provided, so that the fire chief, public safety, and public works can be in the same room together, looking at a level of specificity where they can meaningfully comment on these concerns. Before we ever get to that point, now we were gonna be doing when I came on board, the in-water work was supposed to be happening in like 3 months from now. We have pushed this out a full year because I think, as is very clear, we never would have hit this date, even if we did everything, because of a number of pieces, not the least of which is the water intake component. So we bought ourselves more time, and that time will be used to make sure that we're asking those questions right.
Who's putting in the dry wells for the river?
That's another one of those questions that we were just sort of like, we'll figure it out. No. We're
Well,
gonna
I'd like
take a little more
questions
time.
answered before.
We're gonna take a little more time. We're gonna do it the right way.
Okay.
But it sounds like tonight is it the point of this body to make a decision between these courses of action?
No, it is
The
not.
point of tonight is to ask all of the possible questions that this body, who is just now for the first time
Mhm.
reading an engineering decision provided by the Corps that is very detailed, highly detailed. None of you or I have the subject matter expertise to speak to this with any level of knowledge. But this is an opportunity for you to ask your questions that you are hearing from the public, from your constituents, from your neighbors. To make sure that we have those on the record moving forward, to give these gentlemen the opportunity to answer those in this type of forum. We will be moving forward with a decision here in the next month or two. We know we're moving quickly, but again, thankfully, we do have not forum.
So when it floods around here, it really floods good. I mean, that water, you can't even see the dam. It just. So you're gonna put riprap in this river right here, once you take the drop structure down. What's gonna keep that riprap in place?
So under course of action 1, we would not do that. That's only under course of action 2. And you've raised a very good point as to why course of action 1 is proper.
But for course of action 2, when we have really high flood events, we typically see the highest velocities, the highest erosive velocities, not at those high flood events, but actually right around bank full conditions, which is just right at the top of the banks. And the riprap would be designed for those flood elevations at that time and velocities. So they'd be kind of locked in place, kind of interlocked, kind of like jetty stone. I don't know if you guys are familiar with jetties. We also work on those, but
You can use that stuff. That'd probably be best for down here than the riprap. I mean, the hydraulics that just push those marbles right on down the river.
right. Yeah, I mean,
And then the
luckily,
city's got to deal with it later on.
right. Luckily, we have a lot of the data coming out of Fern Ridge to be able to tell us what exactly those flows are and those velocities. So we'll be able to design the riprap to sustain the high velocities.
I would assume that'd be basically like the riprap that's up closer to the Fern Ridge outlet, so. There's plenty of riprap up there for a good example.
One thing I just want to share is I understand the kind of the inspiration of developing these different approaches was because of desire to retain the fish ladder and the mill race. But I would also like to point out that they're going to be invisible for the most part underneath the rock. So I mean, if there's a interest in saving those things for some sort of commemorative purpose, which it sounds like could be also accomplished with a plaque, why spend a great amount of money to just cover them up with rock and make them invisible? So
You're absolutely right, Warren. There's something to consider, and we have a very
yeah.
talented visual artist. We're helping us on that right now.
Mhm.
But that decision will come before the public and the council to look at what it could potentially look like in the future based on the renderings of that art. I think the important thing here is for folks to understand the trade-offs. What we originally said in the environmental assessment was that we're keeping structures, that we're keeping the mill race, and that we're keeping the fish ladder. If that comes to pass, that it changes, these folks have to deal with whether or not they need to revisit their environmental assessment. For us, we need to think about whether or not that matters to us in terms of the history of the city. We know that our logo shows that specific spot where the mill race stood, where the building stood, the mill. Does that matter to folks? Because I think it may have mattered to the property owners, and that's another piece of this. What are the property owners? Whose property that sits on? What do they want? And we are giving them the time and space and respect that they need to come to that conclusion. Thirdly is about the risk. So the core finishes, they no longer have to maintain this drop structure forever. The property owners, let's say we leave it in place, they might get to capitalize on that and build some kind of, I don't know, big, beautiful structure on that property, but we inherit the risk associated with keeping that structure. So there are many different components, and they're all shared by different parties. And we need each one of those parties to give us their beliefs and their concerns and their decision so that this body can make a decision itself, if that makes sense. So my recommendation is that when we do our March 7th town hall meeting, the Longtom Watershed Council will be here in the room with a map, answering some questions. I encourage the public to go ask those questions for you all to sort of check in with them and see what you think. Also for the Nystroms, for those folks to come and listen to what's being said and to help them make a decision. And then we hope that following that meeting, everybody's going to be far more informed and ready to make a decision on this topic. And then council, when they're confident in doing so, will make that decision.
Can you go over the three options again?
Sure. So in order, COA 1 is total removal. So that is removal of the retaining wall on the eastern side, the drop structure, the mill race, and the fish ladder. COA 2 is removal of the eastern retaining wall, most of the drop structure, leaving in the mill race and the fish ladder, and about 8 to 10 feet of the drop structure connected to the fish ladder. And we'd be installing rock anchors through the leftover piece of drop structure and then adding riprap around that. In doing so, we'd also have to riprap the eastern bank as well. And then finally, COA 3 is doing some sort of field investigation and developing a report. The outcome of that report and field investigation would give us a recommendation based on all of those design criteria. That recommendation could look something like COA 2. It could look like something like COA 1. It could be something in the middle. We don't know until we do that report.
And to be very fair to these gentlemen, they need to know which direction to go. This body is the non-federal sponsor and the decision maker. Of course, this body cares what the private property owners think. And I suspect that this body also cares what the public thinks. Once we have that information and you feel confident about that, we need to make a decision as quickly as possible so that they can move forward with their good work.
I got it in that light. I had a couple questions, I guess. I read the report, the option 3 cost is about $1.5 million to conduct that thorough study. Is that right? I mean, that's
Correct.
cost. Okay.
Correct, yeah.
And another question is the Army Corps does not, the Army Corps will maintain its responsibility to maintain the berms unless a decision is made to leave something in the river that could impact those berms. Is that close to accurate or?
Correct. Yeah. Wendy, did you want to speak to the? bank? Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's further structures in that part of the river, I mean, there will be culverts and things like that, but it becomes very much like the other 23 miles of the river that the Corps is responsible for maintaining. Sometimes that looks like scour protection and some riprap at certain areas. Sometimes there's point bars that form that we try to remove vegetation off of so that sediment can move downstream. But the banks themselves do need to be maintained. Some private landowners along different lengths of the river maintain those. They keep a road on there. They have dirt, the height up there, but it would essentially become like the rest of the river. And then, yeah, the Willamette Valley Project would be responsible for managing it. If there are structures in place, that's one that long-term maintenance. So if the drop structure remains, if the riprap remains, that would be a future operations and maintenance cost for the city.
So the TJ's question, I'm trying to like, what is the decision point for the city? In my mind, as a city, what is my decision point? Since it increased costs of the project, I need to think about increased O&M responsibilities. I think I need to think about as a city. The look and feel of the project. What does the city want the river to look like when the project's done? And then potential liability for bank erosion if something's left in. I'm just thinking about as you narrow that river, the impact right behind that obstructions are going to create problems.
And the risk, John, associated with retaining that structure. Because recall that option 3 is the only option that gives us the level of engineering certainty to know what that bedrock looks like, what they'd be anchoring into, all of that.
But what my point is, that also leads to a 1.5 million cost increase.
But I'm saying we're not doing that, right? Because
Right,
option 2 is,
I'm analyzing the option.
yeah.
And if we look at the structure we're trying to preserve as old concrete, and that has to factor into my thinking about what makes sense for the city.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you include that extra element that I didn't hear, which was that if you keep a piece of that structure in option 2,
Right.
there's the unknown risk associated with maintaining the remainder of that structure.
Correct. Yeah, and that's what I included in O&M. I mean,
But
increase.
not O&M though, right? Because O&M, I'm thinking more along the lines of operations and maintenance, the standard expected costs. And sometimes that can get away from you in the budget if maybe the bank does something different than you expect. But I'm talking about you leave a portion of that structure in place
Right.
and then it crashes off and somebody calls City Hall and tells us that there's a big chunk of concrete in the middle of the river, right? And it's all broken up. what do we do at that moment? I'm gonna pick up the call. I'm gonna say, Alex, help. And Alex is gonna go, buddy, I'm sorry, man. We're working on another project.
It's yours.
I'm just saying that there's
Yeah,
that piece. of it.
I'm glad you made that clarification because I was wrapping that all up into the ongoing costs of the city. So yeah, those are two distinct things, but still ongoing costs.
I want folks to understand what we're giving up
Mhm.
and what we're taking on.
Right.
With each option too.
So my biggest concern and my only concern really is water volume. We've got a water problem in the city, that have been kicked down the road for years. So I want to make sure we have enough water volume for our citizens, that our water quality through all this process, hopefully we can improve the water quality to the citizens, and that there's no interruption in water, that we're not all of a sudden, well, the coordination didn't quite work out, so we're gonna give everybody bottled water for, 6 months while we get the intake finished or whatever. So my concern is we could talk about all the different funding and all the different monies, but if we don't have water for our citizens, and if it doesn't benefit our citizens, then we're not making the right decisions.
Thank you.
I didn't sound, I didn't hear anything about a fish ladder in there. You didn't sound like you were that. Your concern does not extend toward the mill race.
I'm gonna try and catch as many of those cutthroat as I can coming through there.
No, Fred, I appreciate your concern because that really is the primary concern. How we take down the dam is really less important than what you're talking about. So thanks for keeping our focus on that.
Oh, and along the same lines, what I'm hearing from you guys is you're just concerned about getting the dam down and all that. And it's somebody else's concern to make sure that the water part happens.
So the water part to
And
be,
so that's, you've got there's a lot of moving parts. And to me, I feel like I'm just hanging here in the middle. You guys aren't gonna handle it. We're hoping somebody else is gonna handle it. But I haven't seen anything where there's a positive. Yes, this is gonna work. Yes, we're gonna stick through and make sure this works for you. I've heard a lot of, once we've done the part that we want to do, you guys are on your own. And that to me is very scary. Does that make any sense to anybody?
yeah, I'd say that makes a lot of sense. Let me provide a little more detail here. So the Long Tom Watershed Council has spent a couple of years now working on building some funding for this project. Part of that funding is for the removal component. Another part of that funding is to pay for the new water intake. We wouldn't need a new water intake if the dam didn't get removed because the water level, the height wouldn't change. The fact that it is being removed gives us an opportunity to improve our water treatment plant with a new intake that is funded by not us. And that could go along with a lot of what we're doing with the upgrades right now. So that water intake that we're getting, that's free and it comes along with all of the fundraising that's gone into this. I wanted to make sure that that was clear. You all likely knew that very well because that understanding predated my time, but I wanted to make sure it came out.
And with that, was then,
Yes,
this is now. I'm sure that number has changed.
it very well could have, but another thing is true, is that dam cannot legally or physically come down until a new water intake is in place. Because second one, we are sucking air. Right? So OHA DWS, they have to approve our water intake. They have to look at that engineer's design. So we will have an engineer design it. It'll be the same engineer that's looking at our water system upgrades. They will hand that over to another engineer, yours truly here, to look at it, just to make sure there's some concurrence there. Our engineer of record will look at that as well. The engineers at the state will approve it. So there's going to be a lot of engineers talking about this. And if they feel confident that it passes all the requirements, far be it from me to stop them any further because I'm going to have to take that as given. However, Councilor Cuthbertson, if they raise any level of concern, OHA isn't going to approve it. And we won't be able to move forward for our own good.
And I think I just want to read it, that the concern of the water has always been a priority and it's been reiterated many, many, many times and still is a key priority for the city. So it's always been there. The issue of the actual coordination really is it's always been said it has to happen when the engineering is on board. You can't tell us how you're going to coordinate it until we have final engineering design. As you move that forward, now it's a time for the city's engineer to get involved on the water intake. That's really when the technical aspects of making all that work happen. And that's been, and I believe the PPA has in it that until the water system is established, understood, and ready to go, the dam cannot be removed. So I think that's a component of the agreement that we already have with the Army Corps. So that intent has always been there. The actual physical, how it's going to happen, we need our engineers on board. And you're at the point where you have to kind of make the next step with engineering, it sounds like. And we're close to having an engineer on board to do the water intake. And that's really when things can mesh in a way that it's going to function.
I think this is it for me. So legally, none of this can move forward until all of the funding is completely identified. When the final project is scope of the project is there, we can't move forward until all of the funding has been identified for
The
the
state does
project.
not allow us to move forward with the capital project until it's fully funded.
That
That's
includes
one-
the intake, that includes anything that may,
Correct.
and any cost overruns, who bears that?
That would be ours as well, but it's up to this body to authorize the beginning of work based on a given budget, not to exceed, and funding in hand. And that won't happen until after our new engineer comes on board to complete the work for the design. And that would be for the water intake piece. So that must be fully funded and ready to go. We expect that to be the case. If there's more money necessary for the water intake, remember, this was a commitment of the Longtom Watershed Council that the city would have no responsibility for any of the costs associated with any of this project. And so I've already had these conversations with them. They're very open to talking about where can we figure that out if there are cost overruns. But we can't move forward without all of the money in hand. And we can't complete the project until the intake is approved. All of these things are checks that must occur.
And we are gonna make sure all that paperwork's in order, right?
I have to.
Because I'm sorry, but we've had a few years of things we've been through. So I hate to keep beating a dead horse, but
So I came here specifically for the interrelatedness of these complex infrastructure projects. In this tiny little town, there are very few other places with so many other interconnected infrastructure projects that are time restricted. So it's a lot of fun, and I took this on intentionally before coming on board. So let's hope. No, now let's hope. I promise you this will be taken care of properly.
Consideration of the age of the dam, is there any risk of a possibility of the dam itself failing?
In the meantime,
In the meantime?
We don't anticipate it to fail in the next, I couldn't even give you a number because, yeah, it's,
If it
Go ahead.
did fail, though, I mean, that's kind of like option 0, isn't it? Because nobody has to pay for anything except for you guys. You got to mobilize real fast.
yeah.
And then you pay for our water intake too, I think.
Well, I guess that brings a point.
Hey, wait a minute.
If you got 100-year-old, drop structure, or not drop structure, but the fish ladder and stuff. What if we have a slight seismic event that it crumbles and then could lose the drop structure? I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
Don't ask me about the building we're in then, if you're talking, no.
I think we'll have lots
I
of
think it can run
problems.
faster than that. There's a door right there.
So
We'll address.
the other two drop structures, Stroda and Fox Hollow, I think is what the names of both of those are.
Cox Butte.
Cox Butte.
Fox Butte, excuse me. If they're not coming out, are they ever coming out? I guess is my question. Okay. Mhm. Mhm.
So I think the Longtom River has not had a lot of love and attention, since maybe the eighties or so, since they started
Right.
doing all the vegetation removal. There are requests for fish passage. There is at Cox View, the Watershed Council and others have worked on a restoration project to go into the old sections of the river, so fish can get around that structure. There were some design plans in the early, like 2010 timeframe for trying to modify the Sherman drop structure so that there could be fish passage over that. The Corps doesn't have any funding right now for those projects, but we are trying to work on an overall habitat evaluation for the entire length of the river to see what may be possible, both from hydrologic modeling and a water quality.
This leads me to my next question, which is if they were to come out, what kind of impact is it going to have here in Monroe? Right. Okay. Okay.
That is how far is the water being inundated upriver and how far of an effect would we expect downstream? And so the modeling effort, when we did the feasibility study, looked at all of the potential options and then how the river would be affected up and downstream. So that would have to happen with any other structures as well. And there are a few other stabilizer structures and other things in the river as well, but the sill dams, the small dams, there's just the three.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for these folks tonight?
I think, I just want to, it's really important to look at the potential problems. And those have to be dealt with very carefully and thoughtfully. We don't want to miss potential value for the city in moving ahead. And the coordination you're talking about, the quality of life and those kind of things have to be also kind of calculated into this. We just remodeled our house and I had a lot of concerns and questions when I got started. The outcome was great. So we have to kind of look, there's a positive side to this work as well as being very cautious and very making sure everything is in place. But talking about more of the positive outcomes, I think are a huge benefit as well for the city to consider.
I couldn't agree with you more, John. I think the benefits to this, not the least of which are leveraging some of the other projects, leveraging this project for some of the other projects so that we have a really well-functioning city, all focused on the infrastructure improvement. That's a big deal. I think that the benefits were really well known early on. Like I bet the first thing your wife thought about when she was painting the house is how beautiful it's going to look. Right. And that's what we're thinking too. I think when we were presented.
It almost led to a divorce.
All the benefits. That was because you didn't consider the risks well enough. No, I'm kidding. We're looking at the risk just to make sure that our original view of the benefits and what we know we're buying is going to check out with all of those potential knock-on effects. And that's a responsible government action to take. Yeah. But I appreciate it. You're right.
I'd like to add one thing real quick. So if you're just using this document as a way of comparing the three different courses of action, I don't see one thing captured in there that does apply to the city's success metric regarding river access and ease of use for the public. So one thing that would be worthwhile is for us to just clearly highlight that, you know, what potential hazards there are out there. So for instance, if you do course of action 3 and try to retain the structure or harden it in some way so that you can still look at the fish ladder, and is that also an obstacle that people are climbing around on? Is that a liability issue? Do we have to do additional? So none of that stuff is captured here. So I just wanted to be really clear that it's important that as you're doing your cost benefit analysis, that you include the public access kind of dimension to it.
And if it were public property, I completely agree with you.
But
This
people
is
are going to climb
private-
around there
This is
anyway.
private property, right? And so one of the intents when we were discussing with the property owners is to have a space, if they had some sort of commercial use on that site, and there was some sort of railing where people walk up to the river and view it, it would be exactly the same as if we removed it entirely. People are going to go up to that same exact spot. And unless the Nystroms want to take on a really high, expensive insurance policy just so that somebody's kid can walk around down it by the water level itself, I sincerely doubt that's going to happen. So under no circumstance was anybody going to go crawling around over anything. So that's really a non-issue, but it's really what they're looking at when they're looking down at the river. Are they looking at a historical resource? Are they looking at a natural resource? That's part of what we're talking about.
I would say that, again, looking at the positive side, on the other side of the river, there has been discussion as that grading happens on that berm. There are ways to make it more accessible from the city side, the public side, to access the bedrock and access the river. We've talked a little bit about that as a positive, but that could be in the design phase when we look at what does that east bank look like to preserve the road, but also provide a less steep access point too. But again, that's.
And you guys, you are both really more involved in this than a lot of the other folks here. So we'll have lots of opportunity
Right.
for the two of you to get into this discussion with these folks here. I want to recommend if there are any comments or questions for the good of the order at this moment to bring those forward. We do have another agenda item that I would like to introduce, and this is very related to the project. So if you have time, I would encourage you to take some. Sure.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
In the interest of time, I do have a presentation. I'm going to give the longer version of this presentation during our work session. I would like to bring it up now because unfortunately, the work session is after our town hall meeting. So several of these topics are directly related to the town hall meeting. All of you will also receive a separate email from me getting you prepared for some of the things we'll be discussing and the roles and responsibilities if you want to attend that meeting and all the ways that we can interact with the public on these topics. Give me one moment because I'm going to navigate over to my folder where this lives. So we've been talking about a lot of different projects and a lot of different timelines, a lot of money necessary to complete these projects. And Monroe is a tiny little city. We're 700 people, right? And 70,000. We're not Portland. So we need to take advantage of the big giant spotlight that this 1135 project kind of shines on what we're doing. So I want to provide to you an overview of a strategic plan on how we can actually use this momentum and then do some more good work on top of that to make a really big impact. So first off, in terms of our capital projects context, all of this is largely integrated. And we do have some maps here that are somewhat challenging to see. I'll be sharing these with our folks at the Portland as well. But you have this so in your packet. Here is the potential long-term footbridge that would be right next to the wastewater pump. And right here, we have the core-owned Monroe dock structure. And a little bit further south, we have the city of Monroe intake. So everything is just really located and bunched together right along the river. I've also put on this map for you all of the water infrastructure, so that's what's in green, excuse me, it's blue. All of the wastewater infrastructure, so that's what's in green, as well as our schools and our city-owned properties. So this takes all of the discussions we've been talking about over the last several months and puts them onto a single map to help us understand the interconnectedness of all these projects. Our systems converge along the Longtom River, along the corridor. And this is the narrative, this is the story that would benefit us to tell when we're trying to bring a project online that touches part of this strategic plan. There are 5 capital areas. All of it's really looking at a single risk framework. That is, how do we think about cost and benefit, both in terms of the projects on the ground themselves, as well as the money that goes into funding them. And the sequencing, it's largely about sequencing over time. What we're trying to do is make alignment here. We're trying to align these projects. I don't have this plugged in. So our first capital area is the water modernization. We talked just a little bit ago this evening about the OWRD funded grant for $1.5 million for pre-filtration and automation. There's also the tri-tetrahalomethanes, the risk reduction, the SCADA, that's the computer system, Fred, that you were asking about. This is really getting us ready to grow as a city. One thing you notice is that even as we're trying to expand our urban growth boundary, we don't have a lot of infrastructure in the southern portion of the city. We have folks that are still on wells. We have folks that are still on septic. So we need to be looking at expanding the current infrastructure within our current footprint at the same time that we're thinking about a 20 to 30-year growth. Capital area number 2 is the dam removal and the intake relocation. And so as we discussed just a little bit ago, the Army Corps anticipates work to begin in summer 2027. That intake must be relocated. And it must actually happen beforehand. Quarterly federal coordination is underway, so that's part of what we discussed tonight, but we're also holding regular meetings internally. And we have a corridor-based construction window, and what I mean by that is we have a certain amount of time for in-water work that must happen. And the sequencing for this also, we're trying to make sure that it's an anchor for building out other grant proposals and funding that we're going to be doing for water and wastewater. That takes me to wastewater. But you can see, one of the original thoughts was you might be able to, underneath that bridge, you might be able to do water and wastewater. That was one of the original conceptions. And I think when I was looking at the initial GIS, was the intent to somewhere put it kind of in the middle between the drop structure and this pump station up here. When I grabbed this GIS, I bumped it up much further north. And I think some other folks have also suggested this in the past. That is where we currently own property. So we could place that on our own site, and we could also put our wastewater line directly under that bridge without having to take it down the river, next to the river whatsoever. If we did it in the middle, you'd have to take both water and wastewater and bring them to where the bridge would be. What we really need is our wastewater line, because currently there's no redundancy whatsoever. If that 6-inch line fails and somebody tries to flush their toilet, it's not going anywhere. That is our most critical system. And this would be one of the best locations for it, because not only do we own the property, but it would be easiest and cheapest to do it there. The other thing to consider, and others, all of you have discussed this, is there's the opportunity to potentially do a land swap with, I believe it's the Kyle Spring property west that we own outside of the urban growth boundary that is currently owned by the very property owners of this bank, the Niestrums themselves. And there would be the opportunity, and it sounds like a big interest in exchanging that property for the site that falls just south of this right here. That would allow us to take it just a little further away from where the wastewater pump is located, where that lift station is pushing that water under the river. And once we had a wastewater line in place, we'd be looking at an 8-inch line. We'd have 2 functioning lines at that point. So we'd have redundancy up until the point in time where that 6-inch line fails. And then of course it's a non-issue because we have the 8-inch line. So this would be the primary goal here. A couple things to keep in mind is our lagoons are within the floodplain. So this would trigger the PICM requirements, the pre-implementation compliance measures associated with the NFIP work that is going on that we talked about a couple months ago. There's also, again, like I was talking about, the ability to save some of the life cycle costs. So if we can stage this directly after the bridge work, then we can actually work potentially with the Corps about at what point in time where there would be guaranteed no destabilization. Because let's say we put the bridge right here. Can they guarantee us with the same level of confidence as here that that bank is going to be as safe in both locations? I don't know, but I suspect, and somebody could reasonably suspect that this would be a safer location if it's further away.
Away from
Where
the
that-
corner of the river.
from where that work is going to be happening. Again, I am not an engineer and a subject matter expert, and I am not dragging Alex up here right now to answer that. But this is something that we can think about, long term. Area number 4. So this gets to our Senate Bill 1537 grant. We are one of only 3 cities in the state to receive this grant thus far. So that is exciting. This is going to be an expansion, not a swap. So Senate Bill 1537 has 2 paths to expanding the urban growth boundary. One is to take resource lands inside of the city that are functionally non-developable and trade them for land that is outside of the city. And the other option is to expand your urban growth boundary just as an expansion one time at a maximum of 50 acres. Now, as you all know, they're going back to the drawing board and considering giving you more, which is what they're talking about this week. But we have a grant for this for 50 acres. There's the opportunity to bring land in many different corners of the city. And so we have folks who have asked maybe about here. We will open up an application process, and it takes roughly a full year from the beginning of the application to the end of the DLCD approval to demonstrate that we hit all the requirements and that we're bringing in land that is allowed. Once that happens, though, it's really important to note that this dotted line is city limits and this solid line is urban growth boundary. So even though we expand the urban growth boundary, we would still be required to annex that land by extending the city limits as well in the future. So this is for urban reserves. This is thinking about long term. So if you put it into context, much of the work we're trying to do with these other areas is right now. These are critical risks that need to happen right now, and we need to make sure that we're maintaining the infrastructure that's currently in our city. At the same time that we're thinking about how that connects to where we want to expand. And to that extent, not only are we bringing in non-resource lands, so that's lands that aren't in the floodplain and don't have major slide or topography issues, but also lands that are close enough to our infrastructure to meaningfully be added to that system without a significant distance to go, which would make it functionally impossible to bring new doors online and new businesses online. So that is how we're thinking about this right now. And then the 5th one, this is probably one of the biggest pieces, and I'll talk about this as well a little bit more in detail, is our seismic vulnerability that was identified by the report completed by Branch Engineering, who told us, of course, that that building cannot be brought up to code under any circumstance. There is significant risk and exposure here. So rather than trying to build a new city hall, I have begun the discussions with our special districts and with the county, as well as many regional partners. It was a focus of our conversation with the folks from the state that we are looking to bring online an emergency operations center. And this would, of course, align with our resilience priorities. And yeah, that was all I had for this ends the connection to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're not liking it.
So the goal of the Emergency Operations Center would be to co-locate a lot of our services. First responders, equipment and food, administrative offices, multi-agency response, and warming shelters under one roof, allowing us to share a lot of the costs with our partners and also to get a lot of the capital cost funded through grants and other programs. I will go over this at our work session because I have several slides ahead of us and I don't want to go too much into detail and I don't want to go too light into detail either. It gets really as best presented when you have the time to look at it. I will leave this up to council and the planning commission to decide. If you would like for me to go through this, it would be about 25 additional minutes. I'm happy to do that. If you guys want to save this for a work session, it is your decision.
What you guys, work session?
I think work session.
Work session.
I think we're gonna have a lot of questions and wanna dive down on a lot of other stuff. And I think that,
Sounds like a work session.
yeah,
So will the work session be after the March 7th,
It will be after the March
which
7th.
might be beneficial for the work session too.
Potentially, yeah.
If
Yeah,
there's
you-
questions that come up from the public and if there's,
The important thing I wanted to get through was these 5 points. You all will be getting an email from me that covers all of this too. It will be the report that I provided for our meeting last week. I want to encourage everybody to read through that. It covers all of this detail. And what I'll be getting into later is going to be fresh information. It's not in that report. So that's a good breaking point. This information definitely is relevant to that. So I'm glad I got a chance to go through this.
Seems good.
What's Orin?
I said it seems good.
I did have a question on the 8-inch line.
Yeah.
What is that rated for as far as population growth here? What would it take us to?
I don't know, but that is a calculation that Damien could put together for us in like a second.
I was thinking 10-inch
We
might be
need to
better.
go, yeah.
It may be best to go to a higher size. What was recommended when we were doing the bridge project was an 8-inch, but again, that never received any engineering. Nobody engineered that. And so they may come back and say, hey, you should do a 10 or a 12. They might, I don't know.
Okay.
Well, we've had just like these huge spurts of growth, so we need to be thinking about that as well.
Absolutely.
yeah, 50 acres could potentially be substantial amount of growth that may impact. what the
So we're a half an acre total in our footprint, or not a half an acre, half a mile rather, total in our width. You think about that, that's a significant increase.
58.
One quick question before we go. So before we can take that 50 acres, we have to demonstrate that we can provide all of the infrastructure, water, sewer, stormwater for that additional 50 acres.
They don't make us do that.
They don't anymore?
I'm making us do that.
Okay.
This is a one-time and only time thing. And my biggest problem with House Bill 2001, and don't get me in my soapbox, but the one thing this legislature's never thought of is that, oh yeah, there's infrastructure under the ground. I can't just split the lot in half and then add, magically more water and sewer. It doesn't work that way. And so if we're going to be creating new land for more housing in the future, it needs to be serviced by infrastructure. They don't make us do that, but we're sure as heck going to do it.
That's why so many cities are in the predicament they're in right.
Talking to the guy that had
including us.
440
Slicing up
feet
lots
of
through
his
South
own
City,
water
South
line
Carolina
interconnected to the
population
city,
without
even though
making-
he's in the city limits.
Corvallis actually put in infrastructure 20 years before people developed. I mean, I was living up there, it was nothing but open fields. There was infrastructure all the way through it.
So TJ, under the new bill, the city no longer has to consider, or the reviewing agency no longer considers infill potential versus adding. Has that been removed from the
What do you
new?
mean the infill potential?
How many potential buildings how many potential residents could be built on open land within the city?
Yeah.
It used to be
Yeah, they totally ask us to do that. They just don't ask us about the infrastructure to get
Okay,
there.
okay.
So it's
Ask
just a
that.
calculation. They're like, you take this amount, it's like a college exercise.
Okay.
You take this amount of land and you split up how many humans can fit on it and everybody's good.
Yeah. okay. But that question will be asked us about the urban growth boundary. Do you have adequate infill potential?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And where do we stand with that? Do we have enough infill potential that could jeopardize the urban growth boundary?
I mean, Jeopardy. Oh, so I think what you're talking about is under normal I think this is what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Under normal circumstances, a city is required to demonstrate that they don't have enough land
Right.
currently for a 20-year population.
Right.
20 years from now, the population that
Right.
would be here.
Right.
And they have to demonstrate that through a formula, through
Right.
math.
Right.
This does not require that.
The new law
Part of it.
took that out of the.
And this is a one and only, one and
Yeah,
done.
okay.
This sunsets in 2035, so every local government in the state has an opportunity to take a shot at this between 2025 and 2035. It's a
Okay.
10-year, and you get to do it once. So once you do it your one time, you're done.
Right. All right, good.
Want to talk about the regional solutions team visit just briefly?
Yeah, so this was, this actually all went nicely into the regional solutions team visits. It's all part of the same agenda item.
Right,
So
right.
I talked about the strategic plan and this was the visit right here. These 5 areas, this is what we talked about. And you will all receive the email from me, which is an 18-page document with my comments and recommendations and funding opportunities and thinking. because I was planting seeds for those folks. Briefly, the mayor was here, but I know a lot of you weren't. The meeting involved every single state agency that's involved in land use development. And all of them came with a different perspective, as well as each one of them came with some different funding tools that could potentially be available to us for one or more of these capital projects. And we will have them back probably in June for what they call a one-stop to talk about funding. Sweet. Is that a good caption?
I think so. Well, you might explain also what a one-stop is.
Yeah, so a one-stop is where they come in and they look at just one project and they say, they ask me, what is your biggest concern? What is the project you want to address first? Most likely it's the wastewater because that is our greatest risk if there's a failure. They will come to a one-stop. They will sit down and all of the agency folks will look at that specific project. They'll break open a general budget in terms of what you think it's going to cost and all the different moving pieces. And they'll talk about what funding tools are knockouts because this is a problem. What funding tools would work because you trigger this or that. And then they help you go to try to get that funding.
Excellent.
Did you want to speak to on the agenda, you've got strategic plan development?
That's what I was asking if you
Okay.
wanted me to go into.
Oh, okay.
I will
Gotcha.
share with you that these are all the grants I've identified.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I have a lot of grant writing to do. We are going to begin with the Ford Family Foundation Technical Assistance Grant. This gets our foot in the door. Those are $50,000 maximum. The next grant is $1,000 and above. That's your Good Neighbor Grant. We're going to be looking to the Ford family because they've been funding infrastructure projects because it touches on so many of the areas of focus for them. We're then going to look at the FEMA Earthquake Hazard Reduction Program, which is perfect because our city hall has that risk, and we're building new. There would be the Wildfire Defense Grant Program, which supports the fire folks and the infrastructure going into that building so it can help build out pieces of the Emergency Operations Center that are a part of that. There's the Community Facilities Grant, Homeland Security Training Program, so our emergency volunteer corps groups and the wiring and infrastructure that goes into all the high tech that they need. There's the FEMA's Emergency Management Performance Grant, which of course would help us with some of the early work as well. RD, Rural Development, has the Community Connect Grant. We'll also be working on the community, basically the earmarks for both of the senators, Wyden and Merkley. So that's congressionally directed spending. FEMA, which was canceled under this last administration, but the program still exists. So if it gets refunded, we would have the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant back. And as well as these next couple of grants as well. We can put solar on top of the building. There's a lot of stuff that we can do to bring in outside money to support this program. And what I was providing to you is a plan for how these grants are actually going to get written and when. We also are going to be talking about an impact study that we will commission, as well as a capital campaign that's going to touch on each one of these events and each project as we go over time. So there's going to be public participation, things like a project kickoff. I would recommend that we do several other events that aren't named, but then things I'm starting to put in now, like leveraging the high school. We would love to have them do a winter challenge because funders love to see things that kids are doing, and it supports your grant narrative. A simulation tabletop exercise for folks in the community, interactive webinar during the winter time, storytelling events during the springtime. We'll be talking, this is some of the fun stuff too. We'll be talking about this stuff as a group and who's going to be doing what in these. And then of course, here's just sort of the master plan all broken down. At the end of my work session discussion, you will see how each one of these newspaper articles, videos or presentations that we want to create, and events with data collection built in, how each one of these things are going to speak directly to a grant. And I am working with the high school or the school district in hopes of getting, and I think this is going to happen, bringing on a full year work study student from the high school who would be there to support a lot of the just day-to-day activities I don't have the time for. They would learn a lot from this as well. We also have somebody from Lynn Benton College as part of our real group who we can leverage. So I'm looking at bringing on some support. We'll talk more about this. I know this looks busy, but this is very intentional. And the fun part is I get to do the heavy lifting. Sir, and I could go into more detail, but I think if you think it's appropriate.
I think we're good now.
Okay.
I just going down the agenda, it's like, oh, well, we haven't talked about that yet.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the work session, we're going to be covering
Yeah.
much more. So that's fine. We're down to committee updates. I need to give the economic development one. So 1 second.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't get that email. I got.
Shame on you.
I got the agenda, but I was busy at work and it didn't pop up in my email.
Sorry.
And then whenever the invite came for the meeting, it shows I didn't accept it and I can't find the email where the invite came.
That's what I had with that other one.
Yeah.
It never came till later.
I can send it
Yeah.
to, I know you should be seeing it on your work email or your not work, but city email. I can send it to both.
Well, I have my city email set up to forward to my
That's the
personal,
problem.
my personal email.
That's the problem there. If you're not referencing your city email and you're relying on the forward, our firewall is canceling the forwards out. John, I told you about that too. So your forwarding is gonna break.
Well, I now have permission to set my city email up on my work computer.
Nice.
So I should be able to get them in the future, I hope.
Good.
But that's what I had going.
Got it. Yeah, no
We'll
worries.
just catch you next time.
And I didn't know that was going on. I didn't see your text till like 9 o'clock.
It's all right.
So sorry.
No, we talked about the regional solutions visit because this was a couple days right after it. We talked about the one stop a little bit. Growth and urban renewal. We talked about a grant around that, which is what, $50,000. And then, urban renewal district discussion. We talked about that for a while.
That was an action that we took too. If you want to report that out.
Yeah, we're going to create a technical advisory group. We'll have create. I'm trying to read my own handwriting. Declares ordinance for the urban rural renewal district, and then create an urban renewal plan. I can't talk and I'm tired.
Didn't we have an overlay for urban renewal at one time? Like color schemes?
We have an overlay. We have the highway overlay, but did the one for why can't I remember the name of it right now?
Overlay.
Thank you. Did that one ever actually get documented? Let me put it that way.
Recorded, no, but it will be. And
Okay.
the thing to note is that the district will most likely be the entire city.
Yeah.
Because we're small enough and there's
True.
enough
Yeah.
need to build those sidewalks and streets back up. So but what'll happen though, as the mayor was just saying, is that the Economic Development Committee is recommending to council that we develop a technical assistance group or essentially a technical advisory group that looks in detail at whether we should create an urban renewal district. So.
We also talked about a special events permit form. I think we're going to talk about that more the next meeting. So, and then we talked, I think the last thing we talked about was the committee size. So a couple people are dropping off.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So David Mills and then Todd Nystrom, they will drop off.
Oh.
So yeah, that's what I have for economic development. Our personnel,
Didn't meet this one.
that's right. And the chair is actually sick. So we won't get an update there.
Parks is meeting 2 weeks from now for its first meeting, and
Yep.
Councilor Cuthbertson and I had a good conversation today.
Wonderful. Development review, you just had one not too long ago.
We did, and we reviewed the Oak subdivision in context with the partition that happened at 555 Depot, because those all kind of go together. And then, of course, the Planning Commission. I don't know if Fred, you can feel free to talk, but I think the last time, what did we do? We just did a hearing.
Yeah, we did the hearing on the partition. We talked a little bit about the 1135. We talked about, we had several topics that we talked about.
Comprehensive plan.
comp plan, kind of moving forward of, wanting to get that completed by the end of the year.
Yep.
That is a huge focus. We can get it recorded, update it so that there is some updates need to be made. Make sure we're in line with the state's land use. And making sure that, the Riverside District overlay is the guiding document basically of the comp plan moving forward.
And as
So,
Counselor Cuthbertson was talking with me just earlier today, that comp plan comes due and done at the end of the year. 3 months prior to that, we aim to have the Parks Committee completing the Parks Master Plan to get folded in as a component.
and that helps us too with our capital projects, right? Because
All
we
of
have
it
to
needs
have
to
all
talk
that
together.
done in order
And
to,
the comp plan.
in order to
yeah,
spend money on those
yeah,
projects.
all ties
More
together.
about that in my strategic plan discussion, but
Mhm.
along with our grants and our efforts and our events are gonna be these other milestones that we, of course, tell people we're doing when we do them.
And, reach out to us to find out, there's some expertise in the group and we may be able to come down, volunteer and help put stuff together and do research.
Oh, you all are gonna be working, trust me. I got jobs for everybody.
Well, and to kind of add on, tag on to the end of yours, we've got Preston, you have a new commissioner on the planning commission, and then we've got someone else that has applied for the last remaining seat on commission. So I believe we're going to be interviewing her.
Are we missing a counselor?
We're missing a counselor, one thing at a time.
They got big shoes to fill.
They do.
Are you all just gonna let the mayor recruit everybody?
Yes.
Or, I mean.
Thanks. My life's already busy enough, but okay. Fine. I'll do it my way
Is there
then.
anything else you wanted to?
No,
Okay.
I think we've covered a lot tonight.
Okay,
Agreed.
counselor comments is what that, and then my comments. Any of the counselors have any comments?
Other than I apologize for missing the economic.
You're fine. You're okay. They just find a lot of irony in it. That's.
I know, because I was the only one that showed up lots of times.
It's okay. We'll get it together. Anybody else? No?
Okay.
Okay. I will mention two things. We've got the Monroe Festival on May 16th. That's a Saturday, 10 to 6. We are looking for vendors. We are looking for sponsors. Also, we have a new event. It will be on Friday, September 11th. That happens to be the 25th anniversary of September 11th. So we will be having a first responders event at the fire station. And the Benton County Sheriff is going to have folks there too. So haven't really formalized the whole thing yet, but that is the plan so far. Beyond that, if there is nothing else, I'm going to.
Hello, I'm sorry.
Oh, Counselor Evans, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor Sheets, you might want to let former counselor Linder know about the first responders one, because she knew that it was tentatively going to be between the two. The Business Expo, I think is what it was
Oh,
called.
the Business Expo,
and-
that's, yep,
Yeah,
that's 2 days
and
before
the-
the festival. Yep.
Yeah, right. She first knew it was going to be tentatively the day between those two, and now it's going to be September 11th. You
That's
might want
correct.
to shoot her an email or something.
This was former counselor
Linder?
Lindner. Okay, thank you. I will do
Mhm.
that. Okay, anything else? We are adjourned.
Good night.